And please welcome Doug Hall and his photographic journey entitled One Night in Albuquerque.
You owe me a come by.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what is it?
So I'm traveling from LA back to Maine. I'm going to Albuquerque along the way to catch a concert. Crystal Method, amazing band. But I have to have a root canal. I leave 4 hours late. It's a 12-hour drive. It's like I'm rushing to the post office, but for 800 miles. I get there for the first note of the show. They blow the roof off the place, my stress and anxiety with it. And then after the show, I go take these pictures. I chose One Night in Albuquerque, this one session of picture taking, as a way to hone in on process, to share with you my exploration, my attitude, really, about taking pictures. For 20 or 30 years, I've been taking pictures, and this shadow, these questions, this pressure. Is it any good? Is it art? Am I a photographer? It's crap. Finally, in the last couple of years, I've been able to push some of that aside. It's been really freeing, and it's this style of photography that's helped open that up. Photography is such an exacting technology, but I'm drawn to the opposite of that. Instead of using the images to represent what's there precisely, I use it to find some other perception. I've been playing with long exposure times, urban setting, rural landscape setting. I love what happens to the colors in these night shots. On the one hand, a dullness. On the other hand, it's amazing how much blue there is in that dark night sky. It surprises me every time. I've been playing with layering scenes, especially on these night shots, aiming one way for part of the exposure, turning quickly another way. Largely unsuccessful thus far, especially on this one with the flash. But again, it's about this way of play and this way of movement. A lot of the stuff I experiment with has a real clear manipulation to it. Here I'm looking down on town, on the lights of Albuquerque, and simply shaking the camera, exploring this sort of painterly effect. So my ears quieted down from the concert, but I get a little too quiet, and so I went back downtown, wanted to see what was going on. I didn't catch this cab. It caught me. Tightened up the exposure and really took advantage of the reflection. In this next one, again, exposure time. We'll wait for it. Delayed exposure time, not as much, of course, but clear manipulation, physical movement. I tend to do this in general, manipulating and playing with what goes into the lens. I tend not to manipulate so much on the back end. I'll Photoshop little fixes, little tweaks here and there. But for me, the focus is clearly on the experience of taking the pictures. That's the real act. That's the discovery for me. Something about this scene struck me. It's Saturday night. It's warm. It's summer. It's America. The girls are dressed up. The guys are dressed down. There's gawking. There's flirting. Everybody's strutting their stuff. Again, long exposures. In this great theater of people moving across this plaza, just started creating some really fun stuff. Variations here depending on their pattern of movement, their distance from the camera, the angle at which they're moving, the speed, obviously. I love the feet in these. When you walk, your body moves, right, at a consistent pace, but not your feet. Your feet will move one at a time, right? One moves, one stands still while the other moves, and then they switch, and then they switch. So in the camera, that steady foot is recorded more than the rest. Some of these photos are relatively simple in a sense. The subjects are clearly objects within the scene. The pattern of movement might be clear. In others, it might not be clear. Love this isolated feet in the right-hand corner. I don't know what happened there. I think she was probably late to the scene, but I'm not sure. In others, the figures sort of take over the scene. Maybe it's because of their foreground position. Maybe it's because of the number of figures in the field. But in some of these, it's just the layering. I guess in a way, that's what it is for this set for me. The activity of the figure, they layer in. It's not one on top of another. They're intertwined. They're intermixed. And indeed, again, number here plays. The more of them, and the more full and rich the foreground becomes. It's so perfect, these two guys anchoring the whole thing. Blurs, and guy on the phone. This group of guys, I don't know if you can see her leg, but a group of men swooning over a woman. Very short shorts and a high platform heel of some kind. They were pretty great. I probably took 30 pictures just of those guys standing there. More legs, different ones, I think. Here's some of the shapes. I mean, these white shapes, someone's coat, I guess, and I can kind of see the dark leg of the pant. They must have just been right in front of the camera. But I love how that just totally breaks up the field. This guy caught me with my hand in the cookie jar. I think he wanted a cookie too. I was surprised not more people acknowledged me. I was here for an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Very few people acknowledged my presence, let alone the presence of the camera. Somewhere there's a last. Oh, this guy. This guy came in the last half of the exposure, and he just stopped there. I was like, yes! He totally makes the image. That's how I approach this whole thing. Like, there's manipulation and control on my part, but it's really randomization and chance. It's what's happening on the other side of the lens that's so much fun. That's what's helped me shake off the idea, this cloud of expectations, and just allowed me to play and explore freely.